Why is that important to you? Because maybe changing jobs is not important. It's not the thing that's actually important for you. That's what you're.
So welcome to the show, Nadina Tyropolis.
Sort of close. It's Nadina Tyropolis.
Tyropolis. Oh, is that?
Tyropolis, yes.
So you describe yourself as a power coach. What is that for those who don't know?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to see it is a little bit like a life strategy coach. So, for executives, entrepreneurs, people who work in business, we are so used to doing a lot of different strategies for our businesses and our brands and 30-day plans and forecasts and whatnot and budgets and so forth. But we sort of forget to do that for our own life. So that's where I come in. So I come in and I help people really go deep into their subconscious, understand what it is that they should be doing, where they should be putting their effort and their focus in. We organize things a little bit, redefine success, understand what their personal values are, have a little bit of a chat with your inner critic, break through your limiting beliefs, understand where your comfort zone stops and starts and stops, and then sort of mix that up a little bit for people to kind of change course and become better leaders or redefine success or find happiness, find maybe a missing piece of the puzzle to help everything come together.
You said about people coming to you when their lives are a bit of a mess, and you're just essentially reorganizing that so that they can get the life they want. What is that dysfunction and reorganization process? Because I just like to know how you go about fixing that person, because they obviously want the help, but it's that bridge where they don't know how to get there.
Definitely. I think the first question starts with, are you satisfied with your life? So if the answer to that is yes, fantastic, keep going. If the answer to that is no, then sometimes you need a little bit of extra help. It's a beautiful thing when you look at coaching, because it's a little bit like an iceberg. So the tip of the iceberg is, when it comes to self-help, is all the things that you can do on your own. Listen to podcasts, read books, journal, meditate, the list goes on. But what actually happens when you work with a coach is that they manage to take you below the surface. So everything that you can't see, and that's where your subconscious actually lies. So unfortunately, we live in a society that comparison is a little bit of a second nature, be it due to social media, be it due to, other people being more successful or vehemently being more successful. We very often get into this constant loop. And with that, what comes is that you start comparing yourself maybe to unhealthy standards, because maybe what works for you might not work for me. So we're kind of chasing success in the wrong way for a lot of people. And that's one thing that kind of leads to unhappiness. So that's the simplest way to see it. Are you happy? No, then let's redefine what it is that makes you unhappy and kind of understand. And it's true that a lot of people come to me and they're not really sure where they need to focus, but they know that they need to change something, and what they're doing is not sustainable. And that's where we start.
How do you start looking for that bit where people are looking to change? Because one thing, I used to work with a life coach, and unfortunately we had to stop, and thankfully, when I had to stop, we came to a natural end together. So that it was kind of a nicer transition out. But how do you find that pinpoint when someone comes to you, say they've never worked with a coach before, worked with other coaches, where you're looking for where you can start working with them? Because I would confidently say with most people, it's a multitude of problems. Like very rarely you're obviously going to get them, but very rarely you'd get someone who just has one problem.
Yeah, definitely. Or if they think they have one problem, the more you start digging and going into things, the more things start to pop up. So usually what I tend to do is I have a standard practice for most people. Again, every single program is completely personalized. But for most people, what I do, except if you have done it before, is that I work with a personal values session. So that is also usually the longest session as well, where we start. It tends to be an hour and a half versus the normal 1 hour. And what I do is I've developed a game that I play with whoever it is that I'm talking to and help them understand what their personal values are. The fun thing about it is that 90% of people who come to the personal values session come in with completely different ideas. And they're like, of course, I know what my personal values are. They are family, success, blah, 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 blah. And then they come out with completely different things. So they understand that maybe it's not family, it's actually connection. And once you start creating that understanding of what your personal values are, things start falling into place. And that's where you say, now I understand why I'm not happy with this job, for example, because it's going against my values. Now I understand why that relationship that I have creates so much friction, because our values are completely different. Now I understand why the relationship with my parents is so challenging, because my one value of honesty hasn't been fulfilled with my parents. So that's where I usually start. And that gives us a lot of clues and a lot of red threads to start working through the different notions of where you should be putting your focus on to be able to achieve whatever it is that you come to the session with.
Do you tailor your clients' goals to fit their values more than their goals?
It's a very interesting question because a lot of times clients will come and they'll say, I have a goal. I want to change jobs. Fantastic. Great. Or I have a goal. I want more work-life balance. Great. Fantastic. But before we get there, and this is what coaching does, is that you have to ask why. Why is that important to you? Because maybe changing jobs is not important. It's not the thing that's actually important for you. That's what your conscious mind is telling you. But maybe subconsciously, it's not about changing jobs and going to another corporate business. Maybe it's about doing something that you have more freedom. And maybe it's doing your own gig or your own side hustle that will then turn into a full-time hustle, right? So I think before we tick the boxes on what the goals are, is we need to understand why. And then factor in the values. Factor in how will this goal, if that's what you want to achieve, how will this goal be sustainable? How will this goal be achieved in the most authentic way to you, and not based on what society tells you or your family tells you or whatever your boss is telling you, whatnot? How will that be most achieved more successfully for you? And then how do we sort of create a little bit of a plan to get there in the fastest way, in the most efficient way, and in the way that is in a more sustainable manner, and have fun along the way, because I really believe in having fun when you're doing coaching sessions and being, with a coach that really brings out the best of you.
With the having fun and playing, or having the play along the way with your clients, is that why you incorporate is it the Lego building? I forget the exact
Serious
name.
play.
Yeah, that's it. I forget the exact name, but it involves Lego. Is that what?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I have been an executive before this, and I've worked in companies for 15 years, and some of the big companies like Gucci, Adidas, Sephora, worked around the world, lived in 7 countries. So I've seen a lot of workshops. And as an executive, I remember that I used to get these emails from our HR partner that used to say, hey, next month we've got a team leadership workshop. Come there. Great, fantastic. You and your leaders. And I remember all of us, we used to be like, oh, not another one. I do not want to spend 6 hours in a room, death by PowerPoint sort of thing. So I kind of made a vow to myself when I started working as a coach to break through this mold of just sitting there and listening to someone teach me stuff that I don't have the time for it. I don't have the time to sit and watch, this big PowerPoint on the screen. It's boring, and I walk away, and 1 month later, I don't remember anything of what we talked about, because it was just me accepting the information. Okay, there was a couple of exercises and whatnot, but you're not fully in. But with Lego Serious Play, the beautiful thing about it is that everyone sits on the table. You sort of become kids again, because you start using your hands and you start building. It's really creative, and it's a method that everyone has equal say at the table. Everyone has the same opportunity. Everyone comes together with a common goal of whatever the theme is of the workshop that we're doing. Could be anything from designing a merger, creating a strategy for the next year. It could be a team bonding, as simple as that, you know? And then what happens is that your hands are actually connected to a larger proportion of your brain. That's why very often when we talk, we use gestures, you know? And as I'm moving my hands to help you understand more what I am trying to talk about, that's exactly the precipice behind Lego Serious Play. It's developed with psychologists, with psychiatrists, with facilitators, with coaches. And it's just such a beautiful method that when everyone leaves, you do dive really deep in what's happening in your psyche. You unlock a lot of other aspects of how to do a workshop, and it's something really memorable, and it really brings teams together.
I tend to find, because I've been to a few workshops, not work-related ones, sort of in my own time, and I agree with you where they tend to go better when you're actually doing something with someone. So one of my last episode, previous guests, I mentioned that we got went to this networking event. We had to come up with like sales pitches for these were actual products. So like pet rocks, bottled air. We got sunglasses for pets, and they were more fun. And if we just went in, and that was a lot more fun.
Mm.
And if we just went in and went, and the next slide is about.
Exactly. Exactly. It's really fun because the thing is that when you start working with your hands also, you really deep dive into subconscious. So for example, you might ask someone to build a model of how they see themselves, right? And then you ask someone else, so this is done a little bit, you know, a little bit like a secret Santa. You ask someone else to build a model of how they see you. And then click, 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 you put everything together. Everyone knows Lego, it's super fun. And then you go and you look at the model and you start examining. Why is this color? Why is this piece sitting there? What happens if I remove this piece? And then the same happens when you bring the model of the other person that represents you as well, and you put them together, and suddenly you have a completely different perspective because you see me in a different way than I see myself, right? And then looking at the pieces and trying to understand what each piece represents and going deeper, because there is a meaning. Your hand grabs the green brick versus the yellow brick for a reason. The moment you're doing it, you don't know it, but your subconscious does. So when I ask you, what does green represent to you, or what does yellow represent to you? And you say, actually, green was my mom's favorite color. And yellow represents stress. Okay, why have you used that color? Oh, because I listened to what my mom used to tell me about my abilities. Whatever, you know, could be something as simple as that. I just made that up, of course, but that's the base of it.
I suppose everyone's got their own different experience. What you were saying about how people interpret themselves versus they would interpret themselves reminds me of this Japanese saying. I don't know who said it. Is everyone's got three faces. You've got the one that you show in public. You got the one that only your close friends and family know, and then you got the one only you know. It kind of reminds me of that. Would you say when you play and interact with your clients, you're going to that mask which only they see?
It's a little bit of a combination. When you start playing with Lego Serious Play, you cannot really hide when you have an expert facilitator, obviously, right? When you have someone there that can really start pulling out what it is that the model that you made represents, you cannot really hide, you know? And it's not about outing anyone or anything, but it's the exact opposite. It's about bringing out the beauty that you have within. So I'll give you an example. You're sitting at a table and you have a workshop, and you have the CEO sitting on one end, the CFO sitting on the other end, the head of marketing, and maybe a new joiner that has only been there for 3 months, and he is the director of sales, as an example, right? What happens, especially if you have strong characters in the room, you know, you have a CFO that's a very strong character. He knows what he wants. He's been in the company for 15 years. He knows the company inside out. And then you have, let's say, the director of sales that's just come in. He's a newcomer. He's been there for 2 months. He's trying to still find his way around things. He's senior enough as well. But then you have a CFO sometimes overtaking and overpowering that conversation, right? So by giving that chance to everyone, everyone's opinion matters. So the CFO then takes a step back. He has his model. He focuses on his model. And then you have the head of sales that gets the same amount of time on that table to really understand who he is, to really unlock his creativity. Maybe he's a little bit more timid. Maybe he doesn't really know, where his opinion, how far he can express his opinion and whatnot. So bringing all that together, it's a really beautiful way to create magic, And when first you start with individual models, and then there's a beautiful way that all the models come in the middle and create something collectively. And that's where you also start understanding who Nadina is. So maybe, as you say, with the three masks, maybe I've only seen an aspect of Nadina. I've only seen Nadina as the head of sales who comes in at 9 a.m., leaves at 9 p.m., is very hardworking, never misses a deadline, comes with a lot of creative ideas, and is always very polite when I meet her, in the kitchen for a coffee. But then you leave by knowing that Nadina also has a pet dog that she loves. She also does Muay Thai. She's also great at drawing and putting together ideas, that very abstract ideas, into paper. She's very good at finding the missing link within, let's say, a project, So then you start seeing these other, call it masks or personalities or personas or whatever you want to call it. You start seeing all these other personas, and you leave having a lot better idea and a lot better collaboration with whoever it is that's been in the room.
Would it be fair to describe it as the personalities, like you're saying, with the drawing, the dogs, etc.? Would you say it's fair to say that's the personalities that never really got developed? So you could be Nadia, not the CMO, but it'd be Nadia, the famous artist, for example. But because you chose the corporate route, you didn't develop the art side, so that's why you went down the path you did. So it's kind of like me in the sense, like, I chose this podcast as a version of Cayde, but there's another version of Cayde who became a photographer.
Yeah, absolutely. It could potentially be, but I think that we work so much with norms, especially when you're in the corporate world. You work so much with societal standards, with norms that have been imposed on you since you have been quite young. You have your limiting beliefs. And in neurolinguistic programming, what we work with is redefining these patterns and understanding where they come through and creating new pathways and new behaviors. So, for example, as you say, right, maybe I am a really good artist. Maybe I have a fantastic hand and I can do amazing sketchings and drawings. But when I was growing up, my dad told me, forget about that. That's never going to make you money. Go to work 12 hours a day, be loyal to your boss, and that's going to be your life. So that kind of forms a pattern in my mind that I need to work 12 hours. If I've only worked 8 hours or 9 hours today, I'm failing. I'm not a successful corporate employee. If I spend more time on my drawing versus my budget presentation for, Q2 of 2025, I'm not a successful employee. And that is kind of the norms that have been put on us. But at the end of the day, you can be whoever you want. Right? When society tells you that you need to work in an office for specific times, have a specific title, earn X amount of money, that is what is defined success. It's very difficult to change what success looks like for you. So that's when you start putting everything into play. And coaching is something that can help. I have a quite large amount of people that I work with, that I think the largest percent actually of people that I work with, after we have been working together, have changed jobs, have opened their own company, have done something completely different, have dived more into their passions and their hobbies. And when you start doing things from a place of passion, success is inevitable. So it's a really beautiful way to see things.
When you help your clients or assist them with their breakthroughs, like, so let's say they're, just make one up for example, someone comes to you, they're a car mechanic, and then they work with you, and session 3 later they've started their own painting business or something like that. What have been the most interesting breakthroughs you've seen from your clients? So not the biggest, I tend to ask that one, but I want to see what have been the ones that you knew it was right for them. You knew they were making the right decision, but after working with them, it just seemed so left field. You're like, where did this come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Let me think which one I can pull out of all the success stories. This is actually a recurring pattern. It's happened with people that I've worked with more than once. That they come to me and they tell me I'm not happy in my job. Okay, great. Let's change it. Yeah, it's fantastic. I want to change it. What is it that you want? I want another job. Okay, great. That's my goal, right? To tie to what we were talking about before. That's my goal, that I want to have another job and I want to go into a different job. So I'm working for Dior and I want to go work for another Dior, another Prada, another Louis Vuitton, wherever it is. Fantastic, great. As we started working on personal values, understanding what is important for them, looking into their inner critic and what their inner critic tells you, because the chatter from your inner critic is really strong. So understanding what your inner critic, within 6 months, I'm going to put one specific person, within 6 months, they changed country, they exit corporate, they opened their own business, and the business was in real estate, and now they're doing very successful. They are very successful and they're doing incredible. They're super happy. They've redefined success. And even in the beginning, when things were quite stressful, and look, I'm not making as much that I was making when I was working corporate, but I'm free. But I'm successful on my own terms. So we've seen a lot of these switches, and it's very interesting to see how deep conditioning goes. It's very interesting to see how people come and they're like, I want 1, 2, 3. Strict, boxed, conditioning. This is what I want. This is where you need to take me. This what I want to work with. And then during the session, you work on completely different things. Not because I am pushing, but it's where they're leading me. I'm there as a guide. I'm there to hold my client's hands. I'm not there to guide them by pulling their hands, right? They are the ones who are actually leading me. So it's a little bit like when you're in a rally, you have the driver, they're the driver, I'm the co-pilot, just holding up the map. And whenever I need to course correct, I course correct or give them an advice or ask that question just at the right moment to help unlock what's sitting in the subconscious.
Would you describe yourself like a torch? So what I mean is, a torch doesn't lead; it just shows where it's pointed. And you said you don't lead; you just show people where they lead you. So whatever they bring up, they point you in that direction. And it was in my head a minute ago. Once it's exposed to the light, you can't escape. Does that make
Exactly.
Yeah? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's really beautiful. And what I always say to the people that I work with is that it's a little bit like a domino effect. Once you do, the first flick of the finger and the first domino falls, if you are not resistant and you're here and you know that you're here because you want true change and you want transformation and you want to move to a different place, the domino will only continue falling. And what that means is that the universe will keep putting tests in front of you when you do that. You'll start having more vivid dreams once you start coaching. You start reassessing different scenarios and different relationships that you have in your life. You will start to see things in a different manner. It doesn't happen from one day to the next, right? I work with people who are like, let's say 45 years old, and they have been doing things the same way for more than 45 years. Even if you only look into your adult life, more than 25 years, right? So once you start flicking that domino, that first domino, things just escalate. And it's exactly what you're saying, right? Once you start looking into the light, you completely start reevaluating everything it is. And I'm not saying that everyone should change and everyone should leave corporate and they should do their own thing, but it's just about reevaluating how you're doing things. It's not the what, it's the how. And that's what you should be focusing on.
I suppose when you say not everyone should go do their own thing, some people are better suited to the corporate environment, but they would just be better off not how they're going about it, but focusing on maybe one area, so maybe they'd be better off being the head of HR or something.
Absolutely. And, I work with people who have been in marketing all their lives and they love it. And, they're super happy with working in corporate. And then the more we talk about things, we understand that actually I like the training aspect more. I like leading a team more. I like this and that more. So, okay, great. Let's see if we can transition into something different. And yes, they have successfully transitioned into different fields within corporate. And they're like, this suits me so much more. Like, this is what I'm meant to be doing. So it's about also discovering what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like, and make it truly your own. I truly believe that everyone deserves to be fulfilled, successful in their own terms, and happy. So when Monday comes and you open your laptop and you're going into a panic attack, something is not right there. So try and change it.
What would you say to those who are facing resistance? This is, okay, admittedly, somewhat of a personal question, but I do find it where I'm working on this podcast and I get this, I wouldn't say resistant to do the work, because I do, I've been very vocal with saying doing this podcast has been the most fun I've had in years, but I do have that resistance where, like, it's like somebody's trying to tell me this isn't for you, but then ironically this is the most fun I've had. Yeah, right. But here's the thing: the irony is this is the most fun I've had in years, and to be honest, I just enjoy it. So it's kind of this weird dichotomy,
Yeah.
but I don't know whether it's like everyone trying to test me, like the universal world, pick a flavor, is trying to test me, or try and tell me something. What would you say to people who are in a similar situation like me? So they found what they want to do, but then everything else and everyone around them saying don't do it. But then you've got that awkward situation where you have people where, how does it go? It's like if you hear a bunch of no's, it means you're on the right path.
Yeah. I think one thing that comes up as you're asking this question, and it's something quite important when you're doing the shifts, is your ego. Number one role of your ego. And usually when you hear the word ego, is like, me, this, that. No, that's not what ego is. Your ego is the persona that you have built inside of you. And the role of your ego is to keep you safe. So what does that mean? Don't go out of your comfort zone. Do the job that you've always been doing. Just stay here. You're safe. You've got a salary every month. You know your colleagues. You know your boss. You take your bike every morning. You go to your job or whatever your shift is. You go to your job. You come back. Stay safe. You're in this relationship. Everything's working okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's not the best relationship ever, but it's safe. It's fuzzy. It's cozy. It's like that old pair of pajamas that you keep on wearing, even though, it's starting to get some holes and it's changed color and it's a little bit groggy and it doesn't really fit you anymore because maybe, you've grown or you've had a little bit more to eat over Christmas or whatever it could be. That's all of your ego. When you start breaking out of these comfort zones and when you start breaking these patterns, that's where shifts start to happen. And what happens is that you start to get tested. Is this, the universe starts to test you? Is this really what you want? Prove it. Is this really where you want to go? Okay, let's see. And that's where resistance comes in. Resistance and resilience, right? These are a little bit of opposite sides of the coin. Your resistance says, I just want to stay in bed. I don't want to wake up and do this podcast today. Look how cozy and fuzzy it is with my old pajamas. Why do I want to do this? And resilience is, no, I am consistent and I'm going to get up. I'm going to take off these pajamas. I'm going to put on my pair of jeans or my track or whatever it is that you're wearing under the seat. No one knows today with cameras and so forth and Zoom calls. I'm going to wear whatever it is and I'm going to show up. And that's where resilience comes from. And that's where your dreams are built. Dreams are not easy. They're not for the faint-hearted, right? But is where you have to go back and tell your ego, thank you for keeping me safe, but I'm going to try this out. and have that conversation almost with yourself.
I recommend shadow work for most people in that regard because I've only just started it, but it's actually really good.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's something that everyone needs to do just to see what is there. And I think that there is this negative connotation that is attached to the word shadow because everyone thinks that it's about darkness and the icky bicky parts that we don't want to look into, and all these aspects of your personality that are groggy and not very pleasant and so forth. And that's not the reality of the matter, right? The reality of the matter is,
I didn't mean to interrupt, but you could partially blame the horror genre for that because you know what? Well, that is always about shadows bad, ghouls bad, darkness bad, avoid. Basically, yeah, they always break it down to like the most dumbfounded explanation, and I think what you're saying about shadow work, I think it definitely applies to it. What would you say to those who were in a similar situation as you? So with you, it was you're in corporate for 15 years, you just had enough, and then you went and did your own. You've become a coach. What would you say to those who are in a similar or the exact same situation as you, as looking to break out but just can't? Would you say it's the ego getting in the way, or do you think that it's fair, or is there something else?
There could be a number of things depending on who it is. But if I had to give an advice, is that the first thing is take a step back and see what it is that lights you up within your job. Example, I loved working. I love working, right? So after 15 years of working in these big corporations, I kind of took a step back and said, there is something there that is not clicking for me, because come Monday, I open my laptop and I have a panic attack, come Friday, I'm literally just counting the hours, 4 more meetings, 3 more meetings, 2 more meetings until the weekend, 1 more meeting. Oh, just my last meeting. That's how it is. I need to relax. I need to calm down. Then the numbing comes. You stop. You just go into these patterns. So I think that two things that come up. The first thing is to a bridge also to shadow work that we were talking about before, is and how we perceive it as negative. This is also the equivalent that happens with emotions and negative emotions. So you're in a job, you have a lot of negative emotions, what are labeled as negative emotions, because no emotion is a negative emotion. So you have sadness, fear, anger, you have all these things. And then come Friday, you start numbing them. Or, you go out, you keep yourself busy, you doom scroll, you overeat, you have alcohol, whatever it is, to stop thinking about these things. So step number 1, are you numbing your emotions? If yes, there's something hiding below that. Step number 2, find what it is that makes you happy about your job. So what I started to say before is that I took a step back because I was in exactly that pattern that I loved working, right? There's a lot of beautiful aspects to it. But taking a step back, I said, okay, what do I not like? I don't like working 60 hours a week, 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. Okay, that's clear. Number 2, I'm not really fond of having to go and start my day at 8:30 every single day and having to wake up and go into an office and all these things. I'd like to have a little bit more flexibility. Okay, great. I don't really like that. I don't really like the politics. I don't really like, all the games that sometimes we have to play in a specific way to be liked and whatnot. And it's all part of the corporate mentality, right? Number 4, I don't like toxic corporate cultures. And, you always have different cultures that you work in that might not necessarily be a good fit for you. What do I do like? I love working with people. I love mentoring. I love being a leader. I love being creative. I love having my own projects. I love working outside of the office. I love meeting new people. I love working on my terms, and I love to choose the projects that I get to work on. Okay, great. Oh, wow. But wait, I can do all that without working in a corporate environment, which is everything that I do now. I get to be creative. I get to do my own marketing. I get to lead. I get to mentor. I get to coach. I get to meet new people. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, great. I want to work from the center of Barcelona today. Or, you know what? Last month I went to Mexico for a month and, work from there. Next month I'm going to Peru, whatever it is. So that's the first step. Try to identify what it is that you like in your job. And of course, values is very important. If you can do a value exercise, even better. And that's a little bit of the first step to start working towards what it is and how to break through from whatever it is that's holding you back.
And what steps 2, 3, so on?
How far do you want to go?
Oh, good question. I would say to the point where people can be self-sufficient.
Yeah, I think the second step is get help. To have someone, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a coach, a therapist, a mentor, or whatnot. I'm not saying that. It does help a lot because they can really call you out on your resistance. They can really push you through what it is that you are not able to do it. Because if you were able to do it on your own, you would have probably done it on your own. But for example, if you don't want to make that move, find an accountability buddy. Find someone that has the same drive as you. They say that you are the average of the 5 people that you're surrounding yourself with. So what is the environment that you're surrounding yourself in? Do they have that hunger growth that you're looking to achieve? Now, why I also say that it is important to get, it can be very beneficial to get a coach, a therapist, a mentor, is because there is no better investment than investing in yourself. So it's literally like getting a master's degree in yourself. So if I told you today that, hey, you want to be a great podcast creator, fantastic. Would you not invest in getting the right equipment, a good editing software, potentially do a little course about, okay, how to make conversations flow better, how to create more social content, how to edit, blah, blah. Okay, put all this together and you say, great, I'm going to be a podcast host for the rest of my life. So how old are you now? If you don't mind me asking.
25.
Okay, so that means that you could potentially be doing this for the next 30 years, let's say, right? So the rest of your life. So if you say that, you know what, I'm going to invest £5,000 into this, divided into 50 years, right? To get me started, that's nothing. Imagine doing the same with someone that can help you create the path that will lead you on your next 50 years to be more successful on your terms, more fulfilled, wake up every morning super excited to do whatever it is that you do. For me, it's a no-brainer, right? It's the best investment that you can do in your investing in yourself.
Yeah, Alex Hormozi's got the saying, don't invest in the S&P 500, invest in the SME 500.
I like that.
I do as well. Where should people start investing in themselves? Speaking of Alex Hormozi's quotes, because it's under very few different people. So with me, it's the podcast and everything else I've got going in my life. But for you, it's coaching. But for someone else who's either watching or listening to this, it could be an artist. So for them to go and do, okay, we've all heard the story of Steve Jobs who went and did the calligraphy class, and that's how Apple became big. I'm not saying those aren't valid, but he didn't spend all of his time doing calligraphy. He also did mostly about tech. So where would people start? Should they focus mostly on the thing they want and then dabble a bit in some other stuff, or should it be the inverse, or maybe like a fair balance?
Focus on what makes you happy and what lights you up. Simple question. What can you do for 5 hours in a row without getting tired? And some people are like, doing? What do you mean? Okay. If you want me to make it even simple, what is the type of content that you can watch for 5 hours in a row without getting tired? For example, for you, it could be editing videos. For me, it could be watching artists do doodles, which I love, by the way. For someone else, it could be making jewelry. For someone else, it could be creating board games. For someone else, it could be whatever, making a playground for their kids, or creating a landscape, doing landscaping in their garden. So what is that thing that you can watch 5 hours of videos in a row? Could be on Instagram, could be, these black holes that you get lost in and suddenly you're like, what time is it? What day is it? Where am I? I've just watched, 5 hours nonstop of something. What is that for you?
For me, it would be music, but I actually, funny enough, I did do that straight after university, but then I kind of just fell off, and to be honest, I've got no interest in doing a music career. Not really for me. Because I've never been the guy to, yeah, I can watch something for X amount of hours. I've never been the kind of guy to also be able to make it. I used to have a massive gaming addiction, so I thought, oh, this will be a good idea for
Mhm.
me to go work for the Escapist magazine. This is before they broke off and became Second Wind because they were games
Mhm.
media outlet. So I figured, hey, why not do something I love? No, that completely killed it for me.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But, these can also change. It doesn't mean that at one point in your life, and that's the beauty also of being human, right? That you don't have to have the same purpose in your life. That can change over time. You evolve. The things that you do evolve. Everything around your personality can evolve, and that's absolutely okay. You don't have to be really set in one way.
I guess it's each to their own. Some people would benefit from it. You got people like, oh, unfortunately, he's not here, but Kobe Bryant, who's massively into his basketball, Tiger Woods of golf, Mr. Beast of YouTube. So I would say they're very, I would say they're very one-dimensional in what they do. But then I get your point. Some other people would benefit from doing something for 5 years and doing something for 10 years, and then something for a year, then them finding the thing for the rest of their life. I mean, I did. I mean,
It's an evolution.
yeah,
It's an evolution, right? You always keep building because some people say, but I've been in corporate doing sales for 25 years. How am I supposed to give that away to do something completely different? You're not giving it away. Your experience, your background, your understanding, your relationships, everything that is all part of the bigger picture of what it is. So it's you keep evolving, you keep stepping up. Have you ever done an Ikigai?
what?
Ikigai. So an Ikigai is a Japanese concept. It actually refers to something that gives a person a sense of purpose or a reason for being. I can send it to you after the call, and you can check it out. So it's imagine a diagram, and it's got four circles, right?
Um,
And these four circles kind of intertwine. So in one circle, you write what you love. In the second circle, you write what you're good at. In the next circle, the third one, what you can be paid for. And in the last circle, what the world needs. So the place that the two first circles intertwine, what you love and what you're good at, that's your passion. What you're good at and what you can be paid for, that is usually your profession. What you can be paid for and what the world needs, that's your vocation. And then what the world needs and what you love, that's your mission. And when you start putting this all together in the center, you form your Ikigai. You start seeing the patterns and you form what is called your Ikigai.
I remember reading that book. When you went over the circle, I was like, oh yes, I have heard of that. I just forgot the name. It's like
Yeah.
one last question with because the way you described people evolving, I've always associated personal development to Pokemon, which is a bit odd. But then you evolve, you
I
change
like
who you
it.
are, and then you evolve again, you change who you are. And if you want to be pedantic, you've got mega evolutions. But then you never stay the same. You always change, even if you're in the same physical body and you got the same genes. For me, I used to be massively overweight. This was like 2, 3 years ago. And if you look at me today, but like,
Congratulations.
yeah, you look at me today and go, "Oh, how did you go from this to this?" But then that's not the end of my evolution. What would you say? Okay, this is how I'm going to ask this. How would you comfort, because change and evolving can be quite scary, how would you comfort or give guidance to those who are going through an evolution process? So say they're not, well, the example I described where they've gone from obese to basically in, I say, pretty decent shape in comparison. But maybe they're kind of in a further stage where they say they've left a job and they're doing their whatever they want to do full time. But then that way transition where they're going from essentially self-employed to thriving. How would you like reassure them that this is the right change for what they want? Because a lot of people You were saying about the ego and wants to keep you safe, and that would really play into someone's psyche at that
Mhm.
point. How would you kind of weather the storm or weather the internal battle?
Yeah, maybe the internal chatter, if that's more what you're thinking, because quite often, again, go back to the ego, your internal chatter can be very strong of what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Everyone is telling you no, this is so difficult. Why did you leave your X, Y, and Z safety or your, your little comfy zone? Um, I think that as long as you can find moments of pleasure, fulfillment, satisfaction, and happiness in what you're doing, keep going. And why I say moments is it's the equivalent way of seeing happiness. For me, happiness doesn't exist. So whoever tells you, I want happiness, I want to be happy, great. It is a very generic term. What does exist is moments of joy. And that's what makes up happiness. You will never meet someone that's 100% happy all the time. Like, it's quite difficult. It's impossible, right? But the fact that they're focusing more on these moments of joy and have these moments of joy and choose to stay with these moments of joy versus going to the darkness or going to a place that you cannot really enjoy these moments of joy, that's where problems start. That's the equivalent also in business, right? As long as you're ticking these boxes, and when you're an entrepreneur and when you're working for yourself and a solopreneur, things are even more difficult, right? Because you still have bills to pay. Sometimes it's a crowded space. Sometimes you're not really an expert of marketing or sales or difficult conversations, negotiations, and whatnot. So all these are reasons to quit. Don't focus on the reasons to quit. Focus on the reasons to keep going. Focus on the fact that you're waking up in the morning and you don't have a boss, or you're waking up in the morning and you can wake up at 9 versus 6 a.m. in the morning, if that's what makes you happy, right? Other people is the other way around. Focus on that moment of joy when you deliver your first product or whatever it is that it is, and you get your first customer review. Focus on these moments of joy, and that is what will keep you going.
Nadia, really sorry, it's Nadia Tyropolis. It said, what?
Nadina Tyropolis.
Nadia Tyropolis. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your book, You as a Coach?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on Instagram at Dara_impact, which is my brand page. You can find me online, daraimpact.com, or you can find me under Nadina Tyropolis on LinkedIn.
Thank you for watching this episode of Nadia Tyropolis. If you did and you want to see more from a different coach, then I have Thomas Gitorka right here. But if you want to watch something else, then I have Justin Klein, who is a fitness coach, right here. Until next time.